why do we share data? I think a lot of family drug courts that we interact with are very focused at the project level. Many family drug courts focus on the sharing of data at the client level or the case level. We go and observe the team meetings, and there have been agreements worked out about sharing case level data. Sometimes that's only one way. We often find that a family treatment team might be focused on the one-way communication from the substance abuse treatment agency into the child welfare system or the court. I need data from them. But it's important to also recognize the reciprocal relationship. What information do they need from the child welfare system and the court back to the treatment agency? So in many cases, this project focus means that the agreements are time limited. Perhaps when the grant is over or that particular project is over, that the data sharing ends. And so there's not a way to monitor over time the success of the family drug court, or to be able to get efficient in how those data are shared and how we can look not just at the case level of data, but also the systems level of data to be able to monitor the success of the program. And what we mean by that is that the systems-focused data are both the case-specific as well as the aggregate. What does that mean in terms of the performance of the family drug court? But also, what does that mean in terms of penetration into the larger system? If you have the performance measures that you're looking at, for example, repeat maltreatment or reoccurrence of abuse or neglect, and you understand what the performance is for the families that have participated in the family drug court, to what extent does that really penetrate into the larger system? Is the scale of your family drug court large enough that you can say, if we've reduced repeat maltreatment by a third, which is not unusual at all, what does that mean in terms of the larger system and the penetration rate into the number of families who need this kind of service? So the systems focus has the need to be sharing data to improve the outcomes for all the families in the jurisdiction that need these kinds of services. It also is focused on the effectiveness and the practice to monitor how well are we doing. Are there program improvements that need to be put in place? What are the ways in which we need to be able to share data that we can become more effective and more efficient in how we are doing that, both project-focused and systems-focused data? So let's try and make that a little bit more concrete and say, if we're a data-driven system and we are collecting data to improve the system, what problem is it that we're trying to solve? So starting with this, identifying a specific need, the concern or the issue that we're trying to solve, how do we collect the baseline and examine those data? How do we share that data to clarify the problem? How do we use the data for discussion within our core team and our stakeholders, our policy committees, and identify the opportunities for change in improving our programs as well as improving the larger system? And how do we monitor those outcomes again, and changing the systems to recognize the better programming or the way in which this is happening for families that is showing the effectiveness as well as the efficiencies that we wanted to achieve. If we try and make that a little bit more concrete, let's identify a specific need. And one that we hear frequently: are family drug courts not getting enough referrals? So how can we take that particular need for data and clarify what is the problem and how do we use data to solve that problem? First, by understanding what the data are that we need to collect and examine. The number of parents with a substance use disorder with open Department of Human Services or your agency's name for child welfare services. What are the data indicators that we need initially to be able to understand we're not getting referrals? And the second piece of that is if we understand what the components are of the specific data elements or indicators that would help us solve that problem, where are those data? How do we find those data? How do we understand who has access to the data? Is it an individual within an agency? What barrier exists that interferes with that agency's ability to share those data across the three systems? And what can be done to overcome those barriers? What's the barrier buster strategy? Is it some of the things that we hear about not having clarity in our confidentiality agreements, our information sharing agreements with clients or at the systems level? What needs to happen so that these three systems from the administration, meaning child welfare and the substance abuse treatment, and the court, so that they can work together to generate that ongoing flow of data that is going to help to inform practice and policy about this problem that we've identified. We're not getting enough referrals. To do that, how do we both look at those indicators and who has the data, and how are we going to be able to collect those data over time?